I'm just going to try and do my presentation. Let's see. Are you able to see my screen okay?
We are indeed.
Okay, perfect. So, Aryan, thank you so much. I loved it. Like I said, I'm already sold. I'll definitely be spreading the word. Thank you so much. So today I want to present about why businesses fail. I'm Vijay, and so we do software and we do software engineering. That's our bread and butter. And Pathfinders is a new platform that we spoke about. And today I want to talk about why businesses fail and how early adoption can actually help. And I have some slides here, so let's go through it. So I just brought some slides to talk about basically bring people together and warm the audience a little bit. Let me go through this real quick. And it's often when you're talking to different people, there is always a deep listener pretty much in every crowd. And when you try to explain them what do you do, and especially when you're in a technology or in software, the answer you often get is, so you fix computers, right? So that's the answer you pretty much get, right? So that is, I've seen time and time again. So I thought it is funny. And so they listen really deeply, and it's like, oh, pretty much ask the question, oh, you fix computers. Okay, that's where they come from. And there is one other thing that I found with programmers, like with the nerds or geeks or whatever you call them. And this may not be true for all, but I did observe that some of them do hate nature. And I was wondering why, because they're all the time dealing with some kind of bugs, So this is something I found funny, and I thought I'll bring it here. There's one more. Bear with me. So yeah, I mean, like there's all bugs all the time, and yeah, not the real reason, but. So here's another one. So which is something new with AI and things like that. So there is always this big issue that happens all the time in different organizations, and there's always, when there's a second person looking at it, the problem disappears, right? So it's all you need is a second pair of eyes, and today they're calling them co-pilots, right? So all you need is a co-pilot these days. So that's what it is. So I thought these were funny little things to engage the audience initially. So if it brought a laugh, great. If not, I tried. So that's where it is. So let's get started. So with businesses failing, and why are businesses failing? So we want to look at different examples and types of business, right? So we want to talk about MTV today. It's not the music television that we think about, but it's actually MTV, right? So the first M is obviously about movies. So we all love watching movies, and anyone watching the live stream, tell me what your favorite movie is. So because we all enjoy watching movies with the popcorn, isn't it? So let's talk about the movie industry. So here I'm bringing an example of Blockbuster. Blockbuster is a company that I know from the US. It's a very popular video rental place where you go pick your favorite movies, the next Blockbuster, and pay a couple dollars, rent it for a few days, watch it in your DVD player or Blu-ray, and then return it back a few days, right? So they have the best collection. That's what Blockbuster is. And if not, it's in a different name in a different country. But Blockbuster has been there for a long time. They were very successful in their model for a very long time, right? But what happened? There was a sudden decline into Blockbuster. Blockbuster in their peak of peak times in 2004, they had the record revenue of $5.9 billion with 9,000 stores, 84,000 people. But in 2010, they filed for bankruptcy. But if you look at the trend of how Blockbuster did, this is their peak, and you see a downward trend right after, right? So that is an observation. Keep your thought there. So this is about Blockbuster. Now I want to go to the next, from the MTV, I want to go to the next step, which is, before we go to the next step, multiple reasons why Blockbuster failed, right? So it could be failure to adapt. They missed an opportunity, and they didn't acquire the smaller companies that they should have, like streaming and otherwise. They were late to the market, outdated business model, higher cost of operation, leadership is not as flexible, or there's increased competition that they couldn't compete, right? So multiple reasons. Now let's move on from blockbuster to the next topic, which is toys. So we saw movies. Now we're looking at toys. Anyone watching, like, let me know what your favorite toy is or what's your favorite toy your child likes to play. So toys are all something that we all love, and we all engage with toys in on one way or the other as we grew up, right? So looking at toys, so today we want to look at another example, which is Toys R Us. Right, Toys R Us is like a favorite like toys company. You can get in there, buy your favorite toy. They have the widest range of collection of toys everywhere. The latest toy that you want to buy, the Batman, the Spider-Man, everything, right? That you wanted, you always got it. The Legos and the Barbies, everything you got it. So that was Toys R Us for anyone. So let's look at their trend here. So in 2011, they had record sales of $13.9 billion, had 1,600 stores, at least 800 in the US, 70,000 people employed globally, half of them employed in the US. But in 2018, they filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, right? So you see a problem here. So they did well, but they had to shut down their operation. Very similar to Blockbuster, right? So that's that. What are the reasons? Multiple reasons. They might have had like heavy debt burden, potential reason. They were probably late to the e-commerce adoption, which they should have. And there was, of course, increased competition and multiple reasons, right? Cost, consumer habits, financial management, multiple reasons. So that's the T for us. So we saw movies and toys now. Let's look at V for now. So I want to talk about vehicles. So all of these things are we interact with them every day, right? So we interact with movies, we interact with toys. So we have known them, seen them, used them, right? So now comes to vehicles. So we've always used a taxi when we got out of an airport, right? Or a bus station or a train station. So we've always done that. So we have taken a taxi from one place to the other, right? So taxis are everywhere. Taxis are everywhere in the globe, right? So the taxi industry, some of the best taxis you have, like you have the greatest like interaction. You ask about the weather, how is the city, to the taxi driver. You remember that conversation? Put in the comments what's your favorite interaction with the taxi driver, right? So if you're still watching, but even if you watch it later, let us know what's your favorite city where you took the taxi, right? So that's taxi for us. We all have a story to tell about taxi, right? But what happened with the taxi? Let's look at the taxi industry and how they did, right? So with taxi industry in 2013, they had a record sales of $3.5 billion, at least in the US. 13,000 licensed taxi medallions. This is for the New York City statistics I've pulled. 13,000 taxi licenses they had. And each taxi license, the medallion as they call it, costs from hundreds of thousands of dollars up to $1 million, right? This story is very similar in Toronto, Chicago, Los Angeles, and others, right? So they had a record sales. They did really well in 2013, $3.4 billion, and you see a decline. So we saw movies, toys, and taxi. You see a similar trend. Why? Why did the taxi fail? Multiple reasons. Again, inability to adapt to new technology, a lot of regulatory framework, higher operational costs. You always paid higher when you were taking a taxi, isn't it? And customer experience wasn't always great. Every taxi driver isn't the same, but at the same time, you wouldn't get the kind of experience that you would thought you would. Sometimes the prices were not as competitive. You would think, oh, I'm paying $100 to get to the airport. Why? Right? So you have had all those questions and multiple other reasons, economic pressures, competition from other ride-share providers and things like that, right? So that's the MTV for us so far. So we saw MTV, movies, toys, and vehicles, right? So we saw Blockbuster, Toys R Us, and Taxi. So what do you see here is basically multiple reasons. And it all comes down to different things like cost, convenience, and impact. But if you go into the reasons, they're like it is about staying competitive. It's about enhanced customer experience, increased efficiency, cost savings, market agility, security, future proofing, sustainability, building brand trust, etc., etc., etc. But if you boil all of that down, it comes to at least three major factors, which is like cost, convenience, and impact, right? This is what the customer cares about, right? Cost, convenience, and impact. And how do we give a better cost, more convenient, and how do we make a larger impact? I mean, it obviously can be done through rapid technology adoption, but it is easier said than done, right? So, oh wow, well, we are going to solve all of this problem using technology adoption. At least that seems to be the silver lining. Let's see how, right? I mean, with the challenge here is yes, and we can prove it with numbers. We have solved multiple such problems with rapid technology adoption. Pretty much every line item that we see here in terms of like market agility, better cost, staying competitive, all of this could be at rest with rapid technology adoption. But it's easier said than done. Let's really dig in and see how, right? So let's say we look at technology adoption. Today we do something, let's say, with 25 steps to achieve something. We want to get to the lowest steps possible, yet achieve the desired outcome, like Arino speaking. So you want the outcome, but how can we do it with less cost and easier, right? So we want to move from 25 steps. So you don't have to move directly from 25 to 2 steps overnight, but you could do it over evolution, right? You could do one step at a time and then like probably reduce it from 25 to 20 steps, then probably to 15, then probably to 10 steps, then 5, and then probably you get to your desired 25 to 2 steps. Or in technical terms, if you want to look at it, it's probably from 25 clicks, you're moving to 2 clicks, right? So how do we get there? It's a slow transition of for any business, right? And software is pretty much it's good and bad. I think it's pretty much there in every industry, in every business. So technology adoption is not a choice anymore. I keep saying that. I've tweeted about it a long time ago. Technology adoption is not a choice anymore, but a necessity, right? So we all know human evolution. We went through evolution, and we are here right now, right? So similarly, we wanted to conduct a study how a business can evolve. Let me give you one example, then actually let us get into how business also can evolve like the human does, right? So let's take an example of an AI study. Let's say, is everyone doing okay? And any questions so far? I'll just take a pause here before I move on. Any questions? All good? Okay, so let me dive in to our first example, which is about, and this is an AI study where we want to solve the real-time customer support using emotional intelligence, right? So the story here is basically, we know the customer support is not great all the time, right? Sometimes it's very rare to get a great customer representative on the phone or on a chat who's super responsive, speaks the kind of tone, speaks the kind of language that you want to, and shows the empathy that you would expect, right? So it is always not the same. But if you were to apply AI to such a scenario where the AI could analyze the customer sentiment in real time, so what AI would do is basically analyze your voice, your chat, and video, and basically deliver the response in a soothing tone that you expect, in a language that you prefer to be responded, and the response that you would like to see. That is something the customer is expecting but not getting it today. So this is an example of how we could apply AI for a customer support scenario and then basically deliver better value back to the customer, right? So this is one such example. So similarly, each and every other business go through different evolution, and let's talk about it. And change is always difficult, right? But at the same time, like Einstein said, if insanity is about doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. But if businesses are not willing to change, but expecting different results, that's not going to happen, right? So the two things that are needed is change and action. It needs to be done. And Einstein, I haven't seen him. He's long gone. But the same, what are the leaders from the recent times talking about? So here is like Andy Grove, the former CEO of Intel, and he said only the paranoid survive, which is very true, because unless you're paranoid about your business, and it's very difficult to survive also. So two things that are necessary is to be embracing change and taking swift action, right? So let's see how we can do that. Let's bring technology in business. I think many businesses are already understanding that, and they've brought technology in business to a certain extent. So today, if you take it any given business, you would pretty much have probably a few spreadsheets, a Word document, probably a CRM software. Probably they have an app or a website or otherwise, and they might have an ERP system and maybe a few others that have not made it to the list here. But they're all disconnected, right? They're not all speaking the same language, except they may all share the same logo, but they're not speaking the same language, and they're not really helping each other in being a disconnected system. So how can we bring these different disconnected systems to a future state, right? Which is a little, slightly more optimized. The first step one is to probably rethink how we can aggregate these systems and the data that comes from all these different systems. That is data in the spreadsheet, that is data in the CRM, there's data in the app that we're using, also in the ERP, right? So how can we bring these different data sets, and each box here represents a database if anyone is watching. So each box assumed to be a data set or a database that you already have, and APIs are basically ways to interact with these systems over internet, over HTTP protocol. So nothing to get intimidated here, but these are all ways to get to the database, APIs, and there are probably some old SQL batch scripts that the systems are still running, right? So this is all the underlying back office experience that you probably have today, right? So first step is to probably aggregate data and function by various departments, right? That is step one from evolution point of view. Moving to step two, once you have done that, next step is to aggregate all of these business data into something that is easily accessible, right? So if you want to do AI, right? So many businesses come and ask this question, hey, I want to do AI today, right? So AI can't be done unless this is not an absolute answer, but the finer details is the devil is always in the details. AI can't be done unless you have data underneath it, right? So you need to have data. So this is the first step, is to collect and aggregate all the business data before you can apply AI to it. So that's a step three. How can we facilitate AI? So to facilitate AI, you need to have an aggregated business data that would facilitate machine learning. You could put all these systems together where you're learning from data, you're learning and identifying from different patterns, right? So that is step three here. So once it's an evolution, right? It all takes time. It's not an overnight thing. It takes time to get from step one to step two to step three. But at the same time, that's how like human evolve. You need to evolve as well. But it's not going to take centuries old, but it can take like months and weeks old. And probably in less than a couple of years, you'll definitely be able to get from point A to point B through these steps that I'm walking you through today. So now we're in step three. We are learning from data and identifying patterns and facilitating machine learning, right? Let's go to next step. Step four. Next step is basically enabling decision intelligence, right? So this is the future state where we want to be. And before we get to step five, right? So this is the state where you're basically making sense out of data. So we are enabling data that is helping us make decisions, right? So once we are in that state, the step five is the golden state. This is probably a 10x or 20x state where you have like beautiful dashboards. Today we have dashboards, but it doesn't have the kind of insight that you would have to make intelligent decision making, right? So and in this step, you should be able to automate recommendations, right? So you should be able to predict the future and be able to prescribe what the next 6 months is going to be like without lifting a finger. That's the dream, but at least like it takes effort to get there. And you should be able to also do a different what if scenarios. What if we run this marketing tool, or what if we buy that software? What if we employ another 20 people? If you're able to run those different scenarios, and we can try and see how that makes a difference in the business model, and how we can make decisions on the go using machine learning based data backed systems, right? So this is a step one to step five, moving from current state to a future state where we are evolving from human intelligence to decision intelligence, right? So that is the golden stage that we want to get to, where instead of like we creating the strategy and like working through the system, we are basically applying the strategy. So it's a very different state that we are talking about. In the existing state where we are talking about human intelligence, so here you are pretty much part of the system, right? So you have to interact with the spreadsheet, you have to write that Word document, you have to interact with the CRM software, pretty much everything you are involved. But in the golden state where we are in the decision intelligence state, the humans are able to apply the strategy instead of and use these tools for an advantage. I think many businesses understand that they've evolved from they are probably in step one or probably in step two. But I think once you get to a decision intelligence state, there are multiple such benefits, and this is this is a golden state that many business aspires to be, but they're not there yet. I'll take a pause here and ask if there are any questions.
What I think is interesting is that both Aryan and Vijayan are doing a shift, a total shift of, instead of having the human be the decision maker, they are a component of the process. And then in Aryan, of course, you are now totally focused on outcome and not on the origin. And I am old fashioned and saying, be nice to each other.
Love that.
All right. Yeah. But no, it's just kind of, I was just thinking of how you folks were taking bias and maybe emotion out of the decision making. And I am trying to stick it back in, but in a modified way. And very interesting. It's interesting to see these ideas. This is not my normal circle.
No, it's all good. I think this is a concept that can be applied for any business, because pretty much every business uses software one way or the other. If you're using a spreadsheet or a Word document, you're already there. But I'm trying to get you. I'm trying to move the rock, right, one step at a time. And move the business in a direction where you can sit back in the beach at the same time, make those decisions from the palm of your hand, right? So that's the golden state that we all aspire to be, but we're not there yet. So
I am. I make those decisions in Miami on the beach. Just saying.
There you go. You're already in the golden state. Very good. Good for you. Any questions from you, Aryan? I'd like to move forward. Unless I'll keep going.
No, not real questions. Some remarks, but I'll save that for after.
Okay, perfect. Okay. I'll continue with the presentation. So imagine the state where you're basically transforming business from current state to a future state, and this is the business evolution that we are talking about. Now let's bring back the story that we got started off with, right? And there are also multiple other recommendations for different business. These are not the be all end all, the top 5 steps or top 4 steps, but at the same time there are other recommendations, like try and automate repetitive tasks as much as you can, implement machine learning if you could, and of course aggregate this data and aggregate systems as much as possible. And if there is an opportunity to reach a wider audience, to reach a wider customer of your business, try and see how cloud adoption can help, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud, right? So it can be done, and always pay attention to the cybersecurity practices that can really enhance the safety and security of your data and your business, and try and see how we can visualize the data better. And if you can also weave everything around a data-driven culture, these are different data points. Wherever you store them, whether you store it in your premise or elsewhere, the data safety is important. But at the same time, ignoring data is actually ignorance, right? So it cannot ignore business data, because all of these data points coming from the business are vital to you. So try and see if you can weave in a data-driven culture. So that's what would be the top recommendations coming from me. And let's move back to the story, where we started talking about Blockbuster, Toys R Us, and the taxi industry, right? So the MTVs. So today, these MTVs are basically transitioned due to missed opportunity for multiple other reasons. So they are transitioned from Blockbuster to Netflix, right? And similarly, Toys R Us to Amazon. We'll get into one example at a time, one thing at a time. So let's look at Blockbuster to Netflix. What happened because of this missed opportunity? Netflix today, the last year reported revenues estimated $33 billion in revenue, right? So that's a golden missed opportunity for Blockbuster. Blockbuster had an opportunity to acquire Netflix at one point for $50 million, but they missed the opportunity, cost them their business, and they filed for bankruptcy. Today, Netflix making $33 billion in revenue, right? Similarly, Toys R Us and Amazon. And let's look at the numbers here. So what Amazon is doing today globally in the toys business is they are selling toys alone for $133 billion globally. And just in the US, they're selling just under $5 billion. Similarly, other competitors like Mattel and Hasbro and Spin Master, they're doing numbers like $2 to $5 billion ranges, right? So what Toys R Us missed is basically an opportunity. It's a missed opportunity again to list their toys. They listed all of their toys in Amazon instead of creating their own platform. This was in early days of 99, 2000, I believe, or something around that time frame where they missed an opportunity to innovate and adopt technology at the right time. Now, Amazon is reaping the rewards, right? So let's look at the taxi industry, for instance. So taxi industry, similar story. It's a missed opportunity for the entire taxi industry. A lot of red tape, regulation, and things like that. But Uber innovated and see, okay, how can we innovate? And today, Uber is a whopping $22 billion industry between US and Canada. So it's a report coming from 2023, right? So a lot of missed opportunities here, and technology adoption has basically helped a lot here and helped these different companies innovate for in every other industry, right? So we all recognize the movies, toys, and vehicles. What has changed are the brands around it. So the concept will still remain even like 50 years, 100 years from now. But unless you're not if you're not innovating, you will end up costing your business, right? So that's the message. So moving on, there are also other examples. Like there's still, I think there's a lot of rooms to be played here between the traditional education versus online education. Even look at this call, right? Here, this is an online conference, a global digital conference. We're connecting people from New Zealand to Toronto to Edmonton. So it's beautiful. So we're already halfway there. So similar thing with universities as well, right? I mean, sometime during COVID, someone was complaining about charging $40,000 for a semester. They pretty much attended online, right? So what are they paying for really? So that's a question that people need to ask. So similar question is for traditional banking versus mobile banking. I think mobile banking is great, but at the same time, the speed at which they're adopting versus blockchain and others, I think it's really slow. So unless they are innovating, they will disappear in a different way. Similarly, with hospitals and telehealth, if you're really curious about the banking industry, go watch the Bitcoin episode with Adam O'Brien. I think it was a beautiful episode. It's a lovely episode to watch. Similarly, with hospitals, telehealth is kicking off in a big way. And I think for basic needs and general requests, all you need is to go get that antibiotic. You need penicillin. You're basically sitting in the emergency waiting room for 5 hours. Doesn't make any sense, right? So you got to be able to innovate there and then get people to the outcome that Aryan is talking about. Similarly, with the streaming services and TV, I don't know if people watch TV anymore. I stopped watching TV. It's been more than like 5-6 years. I don't seem to watch TV at all, and pretty much the streaming services have kicked in. I don't know about others, but like that's what I do at least. Similarly, with restaurant, I do enjoy going to the restaurants, but I think it's going to take a while to get here. But I see a lot of pop-up ghost kitchens that they're only online, right? These are online cloud kitchens, as you call it, or ghost kitchens. There is no physical store presence. Similarly, with Office, there's a lot of co-working spaces evolving, and remote work really kicked off. I still love going to a building and meeting people in person, but there's a new way of working as well that people seems to embrace, right? So those are different examples. So in this whole race, right, where different businesses collide, who do you think is going to win? Let's take a deep dive into this picture right here, right? So here we have two horses with the horse wagon on it, and on the other side you have a Formula One car, right? On the Formula One car, you pretty much have like a 1.6 liter turbocharged V6 engine, 1,000 horsepower or higher, top speed of 300 a watt. And on the other side, you have a horse wagon, probably with 1 or 2 horsepower, top speed of like probably 20 kilometers per hour. Who do you think is going to win the race? Who will win? I think that's a real question, right? So is it going to be the horse wagon or is it going to be the Formula One car? So with that, I'll stop talking. That is me, VJ. So here are my details. Please feel free to talk to me. Thank you so much.
I just want to make 100% that we all understand what the race is.
Yes. What are we racing for?
And what are we racing for? Yeah. No, fascinating. Fascinating to see. Aryan, let's hear your
Yeah.
comments, sir.
Yeah. Now, to me, it all comes back to maneuverability. I think what businesses lack are the capability to change when they need to change. So, what you're actually talking about is building your company for change.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why you
Right.
need to adapt those tools because you need to change faster and faster. And that
Right.
I can link back to my talk again in sense of the what you need to do doesn't change, but the how
Right.
you're doing it is changing. So make certain that you set up your business that you can apply the how in different ways as soon as you need to.
Right. Right. The how of things definitely is a question, and my personal experience, Aryan and Peter, working with big corporations, change is really difficult. Bringing about change is really difficult, and especially if a new idea or a concept, and if you want to change, oh, you have to get the buy-in for like not 1%, 2%. Oh, my supervisor would agree, but not his supervisor, right? I mean, it's and it goes back to funding, etc., etc., etc. But but change is inevitable, right? I think the only thing that is permanent is probably the change. And if they're not changing and not taking action and not being paranoid about, because at one point, Blockbuster was cocky enough not say, no, we are good. We're not going to acquire for that like small streaming service for whatever few $1 million. No, we are good. They had the widest collection of stores and everything, but they lost their business. Similar thing happened with the other industries as well. So I just brought some examples that would basically allow people to think, because if you're not bringing that change at the right time, it'll end up costing your business itself. I think that's the message.
Very